Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 57 of Superannuated Starman. I'm your host, Sean Ryan, and today I'm joined by the one and only Cory Braucks. Cory, how you doing?
Buongiorno! Welcome to the show.
Cory, would you like to introduce the game that we'll be covering today?
We are playing Tomba, a fantastical adventure title. And it has a sequel that we will not be discussing, but I'm going to mention because it's called Tomba 2, The Evil Swine Return, and I think that's a great title.
That's an amazing title, and whether it's Tomba or Tomba, we don't know.
Or
We don't know.
tomfoolery, it doesn't matter.
It's
All
one
you
of
need to
those.
know is that the main character is a little pink-haired man who's kind of a jerk.
That's true. So stick around, enjoy the music, and when we come back, we're going to discuss the history of this great game. Developed and published by Whoopee Camp, Tomba is a 1997 action-adventure platformer that was released in Japan in 1997 and worldwide the following year by the Sony Computer Entertainment Company. And I'm going to immediately derail the history segment. When I started doing research for this game, I was like, who the hell's Whoopee Camp? So I did a little digging, and they were a Japanese video game development company founded by Tokuro Fujiwara in 1996. As soon as I saw the name, I thought to myself, why does this name sound so familiar? He was the director or producer for a ton of games that you know, going all the way back to 1982. He was the producer for a ton of Mega Man titles, Strider, DuckTales 1 and 2, Resident Evil, not to mention a lot of Disney games like Darkwing Duck, Goof Troop, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. He was also an advisor on Disney's Aladdin. Like I was saying, he did a ton of stuff. Unfortunately, the company closed its doors in 2000, not long after the sequel to Tomba was released. Alright, back to the game. Fujiwara was the game's director, producer, and was even one of the game's designers. With founding a brand new company, I can understand why he wore so many hats. While Fujiwara was an employee at Capcom, he'd wanted to create new and original games, but felt that he wasn't able to do that, despite having worked there for 13 years and proven himself time and time again. He wanted to have a bigger say in the kinds of games that he wanted to make. Immediately following the release of Resident Evil, he resigned and started his own company, where he certainly did have a say in what kinds of games he wanted to produce. As it's known in Japan, Tombi was released in Japan on the Sony PlayStation on December 25th, 1997. And remember, Whoopee Camp formed in 1996. While we don't have a definitive development timeline, we know that from start to finish, development lasted less than 2 years. Tombi was favorably received by critics, receiving a 31 out of 40 in Famitsu. The game was praised for its bright and colorful visuals, smooth character animations, and interesting environments, combining both elements of 2D sprites and 3D models. One aspect that was a mixed bag amongst reviewers was the game's music. Tombi's score was composed by Harumi Fujita. She was also an employee at Capcom, and the two had worked together on several of the titles I mentioned earlier. One reviewer said that the music was, quote, limited to one catchy but repetitive and goofy tune. Critically, the game did very well. However, commercially, the game wasn't the runaway hit that Fujiwara was hoping for. However, the game did sell well enough to justify Sony releasing the game worldwide the following year on July 16th, 1998, and August 28th, 1998 in North America and Europe respectively, where it was rebranded to Tomba. Unfortunately, the game didn't sell well enough to be included in Sony's greatest hits collection, but there was enough belief in the IP that it produced a sequel, Tomba 2, The Evil Swine Return. And with that, Tomba faded away despite having received cult classic status. That is until July 11th of 2024 when Limited Run Games announced that they would be working with Fujiwara to release an enhanced version of the game for modern consoles. Tomba Special Edition skipped several console generations from its roots on the original PlayStation and found its way to the PlayStation 5 as well as the Nintendo Switch and Steam on August 1st, 2024. And with that, I think I'm going to close out the history segment. And when we come back, we're going to talk about Cory's childhood memories of this great game.
Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that fabulous musical interlude that probably just played. So we're talking about history here. We covered the history of the game, and now we're going to talk about my childhood memories. And I am the only one that has any, because Sean didn't play this, and neither did Chris. Chris can't be here today, by the way. So this game, I don't have clear memories of. I guess let me rephrase that. I don't recall any sort of bosses or any sort of really key moments in the game. It's very much a fever dream for me. Like it
Okay.
it's a lot of like weird kind of Japanese animation feel to it. There's some really great like full animated cutscenes in this game. And as a kid, I just remember sitting down and playing this, and it's very colorful and it's very bright, and the main character is just this little feral child with pink hair like Goku, and he just like screams and beats up pigs. And you have like a blackjack, and you get to whack them around, and you get to climb on things. And there are like your main enemy is a bunch of pigs, and they're like these very fat, round, colorful, just evil looking swine. And it was just a really weird, fun title. And I was about to kind of talk to Sean about this off air, but basically, this is one of the many games that kind of cropped up during that golden age of the PS1 where we had a lot of like indie developers making things for Sony because kind of I think Sony just pushed to try to get people to make games. They just kind of threw out the hardware out there and just let like indie companies just go ham with it. Haha. So yeah, we had a lot of weird titles coming in. So we had like Jade Cocoon, and we talked about like Herc's Adventures briefly in another episode, and Grand Stream Saga, and Legend of Dragoon, and a bunch of these other like just crazy imports and small devs in the States. And I think this was one of them that you could just find like in that huge Walmart bin of jewel cases where everything was marked down to like $5.99 or $10 or whatever. It had little price tags on it, and you could just kind of dive in there and scrounge around and pick out things based on their like their cases basically, and just kind of go nuts with it.
Everything you just said was literally the question that I had for you because you've mentioned previously in other shows that you've just had these experiences where you go to the store and just get an opportunity to grab a random game that you had no connection to, no idea what it was, no clue, no commercials seen in the past. You just snagged it, looked at the case, and thought, this is it. This is the one.
Yeah, and I mean, like, this is what mid 90s, like borderline 2000. It's probably like 97 or so. So I'm like middle school. So basically, you're mother takes you to Walmart or whatever, and it's like, yeah, you can have a game. So you just kind of dive in there, and Walmart used to just put these pallets with a cardboard box like in the middle of the aisle near the electronics department, and you used to just be able to just root around in there and look for just weird stuff. And like I said, Sony, I think, was just hurting for third party developers because they weren't established like Nintendo. They didn't have their own like big line like kind of Sega did with the Dreamcast or anything else. So I think they just put it out there and were like, hey, look at this. You can do real 3D stuff with this machine. We're letting you guys develop what you want with it. I think we've kind of talked about this in the past as well, where Nintendo, I think, has been notoriously very guarded with their technology, and you kind of like have to apply for like a dev kit, and you have to go through a bunch of like contractual stuff to really work with them. I think Sony just in the original series just kind of dumped it all out there, and they were like, hey, make stuff with this, make us a real big product. And it came out with a lot of great titles. A lot of them were garbage, but like there's just a lot of like really weird, interesting stuff. And it was kind of this golden age where you didn't have like big companies like EA and the AAA market that would basically look at it and go, is this going to be profitable? Is this going to be something we can market? Is it going to be something we can tie in with like Doritos or Taco Bell or whatever and really sell this to people, like how you see with the Call of Duty franchise and Halo and things of that nature? I think a lot of it was like 12 guys in a basement with a PlayStation and, a couple of computers that were like, let's code something weird. And a lot of them kind of had great little runs out of it.
Absolutely. And I think the Nintendo Sony venture is well documented, well known at this time that Nintendo kind of dipped out at the very last second on creating a console with Sony. And that's why the Sony PlayStation came out as their own independent machine and their own independent developer and all that. And really looking at the time, the PlayStation wasn't released until December of 1994 in Japan, and then September of the following year, 1995, in North America and Europe.
There was like almost nothing on that machine when it first came out, by the way.
Oh, yeah, no. What was it, like Ridge Racer?
It was, well, like Rayman, I remember, was one of them.
I'm looking it up right now because I'm really curious about exactly what the launch games were in North America. You had Battle Arena Toshinden, which I think is on the PlayStation 1 Mini, pretty sure. Ridge Racer, like I mentioned. Gosh, what is this? Kill Leak, the DNA Imperative?
I have no idea.
Rayman, like you mentioned.
Okay,
The Raiden Project.
Was Crash one of them? I'm almost certain it was.
Not from the list that I see here, but again, I just quickly Googled this, so who knows how accurate this is. This wasn't a part of the intended conversation, so this is just kind of off the cuff.
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, just the point is like all the stuff you named, like you don't know any of those games really. Like they're just all made by just weird devs.
Yeah, I mean, Ridge Racer was an amazing game of the time. Rayman, great, but Battle Arena Toshinden, nobody plays. Nobody
Kill
talks
Leak,
about
I
that.
have no idea what Kill Leak is.
The DNA Imperative, apparently released on January 27th,
Who
1995.
made this? Genki.
What a title.
Yeah, but yeah, it's it's just one of those things where you had a bunch of, I mean, I remember when the PlayStation Classics came out too, or like the PS2, and you had what was that game? It was like Dark
Oh,
Moon or something.
is it a 3D RPG?
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Dark Cloud.
Yeah, Dark Cloud. Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
huge title, and like I don't even know who made that.
Exactly. There were so many games that just
Level 5 is the one who developed it. It was published by Sony.
Really?
Yeah.
Level 5? Okay. Well, they are not unknown.
Well, right, but it's just like another just like Japanese company that like you wouldn't know of in the States,
Yeah, you're not wrong. You are not wrong.
It's not the same level as like Konami or Namco or like it's just one of those, like, especially at the time it was probably a way smaller company.
Oh, for sure.
Anyway, so Tomba, um it was just one of those titles. Like, we talked about this off air, Sean. It's made by a company, I think it's Whoopee Camp, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, and so, like, you had no idea who they were, and
no
then
idea.
I past my face is when I was playing as a kid. Like, it didn't register to me. It didn't go Sega, so I had no idea. But it was just this fun game, and like I said, Toomba, the main character, he's just this little feral pink child, and he runs around and he just beats up anthropomorphic pigs, and he just shouts blah, and that's what he does when he throws them, because that your main, by the way, if you didn't know, your main attack is just jump on things backs and just whip it across the screen, and you don't use your blackjack. Only fools use the blackjack. You just throw things constantly, and so you will constantly be hearing in this game blah blah as you're just like whipping things around the screen. So as a kid, I just remember that noise, and I remember just climbing on things, and I just remember the character just felt like this little terrorist. He was just this ball of feral energy that would just beat everything up on the screen, and it was just really compelling and fun. And when you first start it, it kind of just feels like this weird platformery type of game, but as you continue going through, like, you realize you have an inventory, and it really is like this fully fleshed out like adventure title, and it's really fun, and it's just weird and strange, and I enjoyed it as a kid.
I just pulled up a list of voice actors for Tomba and Tomba 2. And as far as Tomba, the only character that's listed as a voice actor is the 100-year-old wise man, voice actor unknown.
Yeah, so the original game, I'm sure, was just some guy that was like, we need Yoshiro in accounting to voice this or something.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if they pulled a similar thing like Konami did all the time.
But yeah, I mean, that's really all I have for the childhood memories. It was just this weird fever dream of a title where the character was just screaming constantly and beating up animals.
And I've got nothing. I vaguely remember seeing ads for this in gaming magazines, but I never played it myself.
I do remember in the back of like a Game Informer there was like a full color thing of him leaping onto a pig. I remember that splash page. But other than that, like, it probably wasn't even Game Informer, but I do remember that, like, a back of a magazine. But other than that, like, I don't even remember seeing any advertisement for this title.
The game was definitely marketed, but I didn't even get a PlayStation 1 until much later. I think I told the story that my uncle got one first, and I used to play with him all the time. And then I eventually got one down the road, but I didn't even own one when this game came out.
Yeah, and that was kind of part of that era as well, where we talked about how consoles were like way less accessible. Like, you had the family member that owned one, or you had the friend or the neighbor or whatever, and you kind of all had to do the big communal thing where it's like, I'm gonna go to Bill's house to play video games.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you play this game with anyone else in your family? Was this just a Cory title, or did you play it with your brothers and sisters?
I mean, this is certainly one that I picked out. I know Kyle's played it before. He probably doesn't have the same affection that I do for it. I think my sisters, it was probably not on their radar. I'm sure they've picked it up in the past, but no one's really got anything to say about it.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, I still think that we got a lot out of this segment. I thought it was going to be about 1 to 2 minutes long, and that was going to be it. But well, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and take another music break. And we come back, we're going to talk about what it was like to replay Tomba in 2025. Welcome back, everybody. So, this is a segment where we discuss what it was like to play this game in the modern era. And for me, I don't have any type of history with this game, so this is the first time I've ever experienced it. I've never played it, not even once. So, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I don't understand what Chris's problem with the game was. Obviously, he's not here to defend himself and talk about it, but from what he discussed with us, this was not his cup of tea. But this is not the first time that that's been true. I'm looking at you, Phoenix Wright. But talking about Tomba, like you mentioned it, it was bright and colorful and unique and just kind of a fun little romp in this world that didn't make any sense and it didn't have to.
It's just weird, right?
Yeah, I still don't really understand what the plot is,
A
but
bunch of money-hungry pigs show up, and you have to beat them up. That's all I got for you.
yeah, and that's enough. That's enough. Especially when the storyline for games before that were 1 to 2 sentences, sometimes an entire paragraph, but yeah, it was just it was just neat and interesting to play something like this, and I wish that I could see it through your eyes as someone that is going back and experiencing this game a second time. I really like the usage of multiple layers of the game. So there are some times that you have to not only climb upwards, but you're going to go into the background of
Oh,
the
you're talking
level.
about like the 3D element?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so just to kind of touch on that. Basically, portions of the game, they have kind of like a third dimension, basically, where you will, say, climb on top of a roof, and then you can jump down on the other side of the fence, and then you'll be, further back. You'll be one layer further back in that zone, which is how you kind of get the first quest done.
I was about to say that. But not only that, I think that it just kind of, how do I put this? It adds another way for this studio, this brand new studio, to kind of cheaply expand the level, double up the amount of space that they're going to use for the character. And I thought that was just really, really smart.
Yeah, not only that, but we're talking about 1997, 96, somewhere in there, right?
Yeah.
Like that's something that I hadn't seen before as a kid. Like it's been done before, I'm sure, but you're looking at it and I'm coming off of the Super Nintendo and the Genesis at this point, straight to the PS1 for the most part. We didn't own a 64. So this to me is like one of those first titles where it's like, "Oh, this is 3D. I can go back in the background." It's not like Mario where you can never touch the stuff in the back of the stage. Like you can go back there. Like, "Oh, this is super cool."
That's a pretty interesting comment to make going from the Super Nintendo to Sega Genesis era straight to the PlayStation 1, where maybe you had games like Star Fox, which I know you did. That was the very first episode you came on.
Yep.
And that 3D was revolutionary and amazing for its time, and I think still pretty amazing, but this was 3D. I had real layers to the level, and I had more freedom in my movement. Maybe not a ton with Tomba because it is more or less a 2D side scroller, but you still had that extra layer. I keep using that term, but that's just the only way I can think of it.
Yeah, you had an accessible background. You had something that you could go to and you could tangibly interact with something in the back of the zone. It was very interesting, especially as like a 10-year-old going like, "Oh, this is cool."
And the quests, even though were pretty simplistic and really run of the mill, I didn't find them tedious. I found them to be rather enjoyable. It was neat to just kind of enter this world and just do what I'm told, knocking out quests, whether they be, gosh, I can't even think of it. We played this game several weeks ago.
I will say though, as far as quests go, some of the things that I find very enjoyable about them is that number one, you can begin most of them without actually being given the quest. For example, there's a part where you have to gather up all the little the bird chicks. So when there's
Yeah,
these giant eggs on the map, you can smash the egg and a little chick comes out. You can pick that chick up and then turn it into the old man. You don't meet the old man until you get through the entire level. So you can pick the chicks up before you get to them, and then you can turn that in right away. Because he's like, hey, bring me all them birds so they don't get corrupted or whatever. And if you gather up like all 8 chicks, you can just like throw them up in front of him and be like, here they are. And he goes, oh, you've already done it. Great. So that was one nice thing. And the other thing about it is I think there a lot of them are very trivial, but they felt natural. So like they kind of popped up and they're like, hey, do this. And it was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. It wasn't something being forced on you like, hey, you need to go gather 10 pig hearts or whatever. It's like, why? It's like, well, I need them. It's like, no, like you have to bite the dwarf to learn his language.
That's what we're really talking about here. It's just very unique and weird is probably the best way to describe a lot of these things. But the bosses were fun. I really enjoyed I really, really like the boss music. And I want to talk about the music, and this is, what better time and place. The tracks that I downloaded, there were so many, but you don't really remember any of them. Unfortunately, you kind of key into one single track, and that's what kind of burns into your brain, unfortunately.
And that track is Hoo-ah!
It eventually becomes kind of numbing to you, and I just kind of zone out and I don't even think about it, which is a little upsetting because I really enjoy strong music in my video games. I want them to be fun and I want them to bring another layer to the game itself. I don't really feel that they missed the mark on this one.
I think it was probably something they didn't put a budget into for the first part. But I think as the other thing is too is that they really just kind of opted for the theme appropriate background sound. Like the music all made sense. It's, like when you get into the spooky zone, it sounds a little spooky. You get into the forest, it's this like kind of like upbeat jungle type of sound. But it just kind of blends into the background after the first 30 seconds of hearing it, and you just kind of stop hearing it at that point. It's very much just background sound.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. And like you said, there probably wasn't a huge budget dedicated to this. Like we talked about in the history, this game was made by Fujiwara's company that he founded. So he's, kind of going out on a limb. And the person that produced all this music was one of his friends, Harumi Fujita, and they were employees together at Capcom. So it probably was one of those like, hey, can you do me a big favor?
Yeah, it was.
And who knows how much effort was really put into it.
Yeah, I'm sure not much, but it's good. It's a fun thing. It's just like I said, I don't think it was a lot of extra care being put into this particular thing.
Yeah, I think that's pretty evident when it comes to the music, but the gameplay I think was great. I think it was really well done. It's a shame that it didn't really catch on because this I think could have been a big title or a bigger title than it ever was.
Well, and obviously it has a cult following of a sort because it did get remastered. So we saw the remake in 2025. Um, and it did have a sequel. So it was big enough, but I just don't think it had that kind of staying power to make it a real like big franchise. Which honestly some games don't need to be a franchise. I just wish it sold well enough for them to like make it a big profitable thing and then they could do other things.
Yeah, that's true. And that's a good point. How did you play this game?
I played it through the magic of GameStop Online. Um, I did not get the remaster. I played
Oh,
the original game.
so I did the remaster.
Okay.
Yeah, I played it on the Nintendo Switch, which I played just about everything on there that I can because it's just so convenient for me to throw everything on
Yeah,
there
it's
and
fair.
being able to play, on the go or even in bed. But yeah, I thought it was great. And it really kind of lends itself to that portability as well because it's not an overly complex game. There's not a lot that you have to do control wise. You're not going to be memorizing tons and tons of combos. It
Yeah,
was
you
just
just
a
grab, pick, and throw.
Yeah, it was just a really simplistic game.
I mean, even the bosses. I want to touch on the bosses really quick. The bosses are very interesting because you have these 7 evil swine, basically, and they're all like kind of themed wizards. One of them's like the spooky guy, one of them's the forest dude, one of them's the underwater guy. Like, you guys get the picture. But to beat the boss, you have to basically grab him and then you throw him into the evil pig bag, which is colored in the same color scheme as as the boss. So the yellow one goes in the yellow bag, etc. And in the beginning, it's pretty simple. Like, I think the lava one's the first one. You grab him and you aim for the bag and you throw him in the opening, and then he kind of bounces around, and then you collect that evil bag. And then as the bosses progress, like, you have more and more environmental effects. The bag starts moving around the zone. It becomes much harder to kind of corral this, and it becomes one of those things where, to me, it's very akin to the first Bowser fight in Mario 64, where you kind of have to grab him by the tail and then swish him around and throw him into the bomb. And it's kind of that feel where it's a very simplistic concept, but it also requires like timing and accuracy. And if you get kind of bogged down by the environmental effects, it becomes a nightmare.
Yeah, and the bosses I thought were pretty fun and entertaining, but they weren't overly complex like you just mentioned.
And there was also a lot of trash talking. This game has a lot of dialogue.
That's a good point. And if you're not a fan of reading, that's going to be pretty upsetting to you.
Yeah, like there is a story here. I'm not sure what it is because there's a lot of just a lot of banter and a lot of NPCs that just call you like real. The NPCs are really rude to you too because you're just this little feral child. Like, everyone's just like, that weird pink-haired kid is here and he's biting people again. Like, everyone just kind of has a low opinion of you. But yeah, like, there's these scholarly wizard guys that are asking for your help to kind of like get rid of the evil swine. And then there's these 7 evil pigs that are like gathering up gold and turning people into like creatures and stuff. And then it's like I said, it's just a weird fever dream of a game.
And I think you brought this up earlier. The full motion video that you saw was great. It
Yeah.
really lends to bringing you into that world.
Yeah, like, you'll meet the wizard guy or or whatever, the 100-year-old man, and you walk into his room, and then he gives you like the lore dump. He's like, "Long ago, the 7 evil pigs arrived and turned our land into the spooky darkness you see today, and they hunger for gold." And it's like all voice acted, and it's like this big animated. It's full on anime. Like, there's this 8-second long clip of like the landscape getting corrupted, and it's like beautifully done, and like there's full artwork and everything for it, and it's great, and it just comes out of nowhere.
Really, really well done.
Yeah, and it happens like, I don't know, a dozen times, half a dozen, somewhere in there. Like, it just keeps popping up. Like something big will happen. You're like, oh, there's a new cutscene, like a full animated cutscene. It's like when Frog cuts the mountain in Chrono Trigger. You're just like, oh, a thing is happening.
That is so, so cool.
Yeah, right.
Man, we really need to play that game.
Yeah, we do. We'll get it sometime. But yeah, it was just this. It's one more layer in this title where you weren't expecting it, and it was just this cool extra thing. And for something that I paid like $12 for in a bin at Walmart in 1998, it was just this. It was just great.
Yeah, I'm pretty envious that you got to experience all that. But I think that we have kind of talked this point out. So let's take our last and final break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss our final thoughts on this game. Stick around, we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. This is our final segment with our final thoughts. For me, this game, I don't have the nostalgia tied to it, but it is a fun game. I don't know whether or not there's ever going to be a remake of the sequel, but I really hope there is because I would gladly play it. This game to me really kind of taps into that childhood space that I had. When I was younger, I was a teenager, I was playing a PlayStation for the first time, and I just was just in awe of this new technology. And this game really kind of did that for me. So I would recommend this for somebody. I would recommend that you play this game. It's not going to be something revolutionary, but it's definitely something that I would recommend that you check out and see if it's something you might enjoy because I think you will. Cory, what are your thoughts?
I love it. So to me, this is kind of like a warm hug. It's just it's this fun, low pressure kind of title. I think we said the same thing about Spyro. It's very colorful, it's very fanciful and fun and exciting, and you really don't have to worry about really dying. Like there's a health bar system, but it's very low pressure, and it's non-offensive. There's really nothing in this game to be like, oh, he did what? Like it's real like child friendly. It's just a fun title. And as you said, there's nothing groundbreaking here, but if you just want kind of this no mind adventure where you can run around and just smack stuff around and just have a good time without having to really think about anything, it's very like accessible, pick up and play ready, nothing to really think about. I don't know probably like $20 or something for the remake. Like if you've got the money and you've got the curiosity, like, go for it. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think it's definitely worth a few bucks to check it out. And I really, really hope that you do, like I said.
Yeah, special edition 1995 on Steam. There you go.
You said 1995?
Yeah, for the special edition on Steam.
Well, there you go. And you'll probably catch a discount whether it's on Steam or
Yeah, just
the eShop.
if you're really concerned, wait for the summer sale or the winter sale, I guess will be coming up next.
Yeah, and you'll probably get at least a 30% discount on that, if not more, for this title. So, yeah, I think that's it. I think that's going to wrap up this show. Cory, thank you so much for recommending this game. I know that Chris wasn't here, and unfortunately, we couldn't hear his side of it. So, Chris, we're just going to say you're wrong.
Yeah, for those of you at home, from Chris's first thoughts, where he asked me point blank why I would recommend such a title, I think I can tell you that he did not appreciate it as we do. So if you guys tend to agree with Chris on his opinions on games, maybe not this one for you. But for the rest of you, I think it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so what we're saying is that if you enjoyed the Jurassic Park game for Super Nintendo,
Yeah, then if you really love, we're a fan of that. I think you just stay away from this because Chris loves Jurassic Park.
yeah, if you hated Phoenix Wright, Tomba, not for you. It's not it. Something else.
Thanks for coming.
But that said, thank you everyone. Thank you out there for listening to the show. I know it's been a long hiatus for us, but we're trying to get better and be more on time with these things and have a better schedule. Our next game is going to be Rampart for the Sega Genesis. So stick around and that's going to be out soon. I guarantee it. Thank you all very, very much. We've been Superannuated Starman.